Welcome to the absolute dumpster fire that is this history final. Featuring me, Jim if he ever decides to pick up his phone, and a lot of pain. Our final is written on the Meiji Restoration and the resulting Meiji era of Japan. The Meiji Restoration was a period of time in Japan when Japan ended its isolationist policies and underwent rapid industrialization and westernization.
The Meiji Restoration was put into motion the moment Matthew Perry traveled to Japan in 1853 and forced them to open up their ports through an unequal treaty. Many people saw the current government, the Tokugawa, inept because they were unable to prevent this from happening and keep Japan's isolationist mindset. As a result, two clans overthrew the current government and appointed the Meiji Emperor as the absolute leader of Japan.
The constitution that was created during this time described the emperor as being sacred and inviolable. The Meiji emperor wanted to make Japan an imperial power such as England and America, but he realized that completely ignoring Western ideologies and inventions wasn't going to do it. So he issued a series of reforms that started a period in Japan of westernization and industrialization.
They also invited European artists and teachers to teach and spread Western cultures in Japan. These reforms created a number of private Japanese industries, such as glass and silk, and also enabled the use of inventions such as railroads and telegraphs. The first railroad in Japan was built in 1872, and by 1900s, they were covered by them. Telegraph lines also enabled communication in 1880, when they had linked all major cities. Japan also underwent rapid social changes due to how heavily their country was changing. Feudalism was abolished in Japan during this time period. Education had greatly improved due to the recognition that they lacked knowledge of Western discoveries, which further led to a huge economic growth due to the increased understanding amongst all of Japanese. Unlike other countries, law in Japan didn't generally favor men over women, so women shared mostly the same right as men.
The samurais held a major portion of power before the Meiji Restoration happened. However, they lost that power after the Meiji Restoration. The daimyo lost most of their control after the emperor came into power, so the samurai were no longer needed to consolidate the control of the daimyo. A centralized military under the emperor was also formed, so they no longer held a place in the military. As a result, the samurais faded out as a social class altogether.
When the Meiji Emperor came in power, the emperor embraced Shintoism, which believed that all humans are fundamentally good, and the evils are seen as being controlled by the evil spirits. Shintoism eventually died down after World War II in 1945, when Japan was defeated in the war. To increase their economic gain, the government sought to imperialize and colonize other countries, like all the cool kids are doing. Unfortunately for them, the Europeans had already done that to the majority of the countries surrounding Japan. However, due to the unequal treaties the Chinese had signed, they were in an extremely weak political and economic state. The Japanese saw this and said,
It's free real estate.
the Japanese waged war on China in 1894 in an attempt to take Korea. This war is called the First Sino-Japanese War. The Sino-Japanese War ended in 1895 with the Japanese coming out victorious. China was forced to recognize the independence of Korea, and the Chinese were forced to cede Taiwan, Pescadores, and the Liaodong Peninsula. However, Russia, France, and Germany forced the Japanese to give the Liaodong Peninsula back to China.
In 1904, Japan and Russia went to war over East Asia. This war was called the Russo-Japanese War. The Japanese won this war, marking the first time an Asian power was able to defeat a European one in modern times. The treaty that ended this war stopped Russian expansionist policies in East Asia. This loss also humiliated the Russians. 1912 marked the end of the Meiji period following the emperor's death. The Meiji Restoration set Japan on a course to become a modern economic power and one of the major powers present in World War II.